Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. As a country of immigrants, every family has a story of how they came to America, struggles that would seem insurmountable to most of us, and how they moved forward. Johanka Hart Tompkins has an extraordinary story entitled Slavka, The Daughters of Bohemia, Book 1. Where am I calling?
You are calling in Westchester, Ohio, Cincinnati area.
And your daughter isn't far from here, right? She's in Brooklyn?
Yeah, she's a photographer there. Yeah, she's got her own studio. She does a lot of work
for who?
For all kinds of great magazines, and she's just published her own book. So yeah, pretty proud of her.
That's wonderful. So she's published her book. Now you're publishing yours.
There you go.
Slavka, The Daughters of Bohemia, Book 1.
It is my grandmother's story, and it will continue to be our life story. Truly, there were... She was a daughter of Bohemia, and then my mother was her only daughter, and I'm my mother's only daughter, and then I have an only daughter.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So it is about the early 20th century. It starts out with my grandmother in 1927, and she... is the daughter of a concert violinist and also a court violinist. And she grows up in this incredible home, like a fairy tale home, in a place called Leitmeritz. And I really didn't realize, like, she was a great storyteller. She told us all these stories about her life and about what occurred in her lifetime. And when I finally decided to write the stories, I went to research this, and I found in the archives her birthplace and her where she was born and who the people around her were, and their names and all of the things that kind of were alluded to, but I found out in factual information. She is this really amazing woman who just has this joy for life, what I call the Bohemian spirit. And she always shared it with me and my brother instead of bedtime stories. So I'm a teacher still. I've been teaching 43 years.
What do you teach?
I teach Russian and German. And I've told the stories of her stories and also my parents' stories and my life story to my students and to friends and family. But my students are always like, oh my gosh, you've got to write a book. You have to write this. You have to share it with the world because it's so fun and it's so interesting. So yeah, 12 years ago, I said, well, I think it is time to share kind of the stories and the strength that I have found from them and the understanding of the world that I found from them with a wider audience. So yeah, that's where that journey began. And it is truly her life story, not all of her life story, but the beginning of her life story, from going out to finding her first employment, finding her first love, finding conflict, and there's always a faction of people who don't approve. There are conflicts between social norms and status, and she encounters all of those things. It was a time between when there was royalty, the titles were abolished, but it still was a thing. And, the common man. And also this story that I cling to all my life whenever I'm in really a peril state. And that's the story of my grandfather, who was captured during World War One and was taken to a Siberian gulag work camp. And he actually escaped in the middle of winter and walked and swam and found a way over a period of 2 years to make it back home to the town of Leitmeritz, where both my mom and my grandmother were born. So it's an inspirational story for me, and I want to share that as well with the audience. Yeah, so it's her husband. So it ends. The story ends with the honeymoon. But the other thing that really fascinated me was the people that I discovered. I did an incredible amount of research in 4 different languages, going to archives, looking at newspaper articles in different languages, and finding people's quotes, even finding people's like videos or film of them speaking and what they had to say. And so I found these incredible gems of people that didn't quite fit into the historical formula of being great, but to me, they're incredibly great and their lives are amazing. And so I came upon this woman, Eliška Junkova. My grandfather was a race car driver, and so he had to have had an affiliation with this woman who was Czech, who was really the greatest race car driver of the time. And, her life story is just so amazing. And then my grandmother would always talk about this entrepreneur named Tomáš Baťa. He's a shoemaker, but his idea of what it is to be an honest and moral person and entrepreneur was just so fascinating. It really, I found so much history and so many new people in my research that it gave me a whole new wholeness of who my grandmother and grandfather were and what their lives were about and what history was like at the time. It was a time of the roaring 20s, right? And I talk about the movies, the different kinds of music. I talk about the fashion of the time in great detail of what that was like at the time. And then I delved into what caused the Great Depression and who was affected and how did it affect the world. So I've learned so much from all of these things in my book. And all the places, and then she travels. She has 2 really great losses in her early life, and she really struggles with God and, how can he be so unjust or cruel? And then finds that within herself there is a purpose that he has for her. And so she then needs to heal. There's a lot of pain. And so she travels to all these cool places like Salzburg, where her father is involved in a part of a concert. And she travels to Karlovy Vary, my hometown, with Eliška, and she travels to Prague to find also her identity with people that she knows in Prague, and her love for history. She's able to find it through a mutual friend who she kind of calls an uncle, who was Dvořák's pupil. And so she finds a lot of healing in people who have lost their spouses or have lost their love of their life, and she rebuilds her life into a joyful way to find love again.
Sounds fearless. And she sounds like
She,
there was a lot of restrictions on women at that time. I know here in the United States, and I'm sure in Czechoslovakia and in Europe. And it's as if she just had a force inside of her that kept her moving no matter what happened.
yeah, she did. All of the sisters were brought up to be educated, and they all ended. They finished gymnasium, which is kind of equivalent to college. But you're right, she was different from her sisters in that she was fearless. And the things that she survived and still could find this thing that she called ropey. Um, my children all know about ropey. It's this exuberance and this crazy silliness, almost like I'm going to rebel against the world and just be silly and be joyful. And no matter what happens in the world, I'm going to find this crazy joy and silliness within me. I don't want to give it up. And she would sing these little songs with us, like "Rira Rutsche, wir fahren mit der Kutsche. Kutsche hat ein Loch, wir haben aber ein Loch." And yeah, she brought a lot of like spirit. You're right, she was fearless, and she's just a true survivor, and she told it well.
Yeah, she had a great memory and for detail. It sounds as if that you make it sound as if she remembered a lot of the details because you were able to follow the trail and find it's kind of like you filled in the rest of the story.
Right. Yeah. I didn't really set out to that, but again, it's just the kids were just like, and different people in my life were like, come on, tell the story. We want to know more. We want to hear what happens. We want to know how she survived, the time of Hitler, and how did, that transfer to her daughter, and how did it transfer to you? And so I realized early on that it had to begin with her. The story had to begin with her. And yeah, the subsequent stories, it is the goal not to be 12 years apart. I do plan on being a full-time writer, and just to tell the story of the three daughters born in Bohemia, with this great spirit of a fight, fight against evil, a fight for justice, and a fight for happiness, and a fight for the right for women to document history in their view, in how they experienced it, because that's also part of the book. Is like, the Bible and the history books are documented by men, and there are so many holes, right, that are not filled in for women, and I want to fill those holes.
There's a lot of women trying to fill those holes, I feel.
I know, I'm really happy for that.
I mean, I see a lot more of that now. I don't know whether I'm just taking notice of it, but yeah, I mean, look at the British monarchy and look at all of the women that were behind those crazy kings and look at what they were able to do. I mean, when you start reading that, I like to read historical fiction, and when you start reading about the lives of these women and the influence they had and the things that they were able to accomplish despite being less than, it is fascinating.
I know.
And it's a source of pride.
Yeah, I mean, look at Catherine the Great, right? Wow,
I was just
what another powerhouse, right?
Yeah. So Slavka, she's right up there.
Yes, she is.
She really is, and it's almost like you were destined to do this.
Yeah. I wanted to say that the inspiration for how I write have been Goethe, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Kafka, but also Jean Au, recently, American writer. I love her work because they all bring you into their world, right? And you come out with a understanding that you didn't have before, a view of that part of history you didn't have before, and also an inner understanding of relationships. So that is my, that's where I draw my writing skill from, these authors. Hopefully being able to draw in my audience in the same way, or maybe in a different way, but to give them a new understanding, a appreciation for what was in the past and what we can accomplish for the future, what we can do to be kinder, to be braver, to be more appreciative.
You said it took 12 years for this book. That's because you were writing and doing a million other I mean, you were teaching and
just summers.
yeah.
It was all
Yeah.
summers.
So now
yeah, 12 summers. So now I will dedicate my career to writing.
You must have incredible organizational skills, and you must have the patience of a saint to do all of that research. And thankfully you have the background with your languages, and so you were able to understand a lot of things that people would have to translate, and really your background enabled you to do so much more than just the average person trying to trace their history, right?
Yeah. A lot of people have said, it's like, well, you've had a really, really rough life. You've had a tough life. And I said, no, I'm so grateful for the life that I have been given, because it has put me in so many places that are of historical relevance. It has made me a person that speaks 4 languages fluently and understands 4, maybe more different cultures, and can see the world through different lenses, right? So I feel so fortunate that God gave me this situation. So
why would people
yeah.
say that have you had a rough life?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. I mean, my family's escaped under fire when I was 6 years old over the Yugoslav border. We were held in prison under espionage, maybe espionage situation. Finally, we were released as refugees and spent 4 years in Germany, and then came in '68 to the United States. And again, so we've left family, property, everything behind for 4 different times, and experiencing the prejudices people have when you come as a child, that you don't know the culture, you don't know the language. Growing up that way, it wasn't an easy thing, right? It wasn't easy. My brother, I think, suffers from it still, but I embraced it. I just feel fortunate to have had that experience.
That's something most people can't even wrap their head around. So the bottom line here, obviously, I mean, is getting the word out. I would think you would be a great lecturer at a college or some kind of a course, or
yes, I've been approached by my own school. I teach at a very lucrative, I mean, it's a public school, but we are a magnet school, and there have been quite a few authors that have emerged out of high school. I've also been approached by people that have book clubs and things like that. And you're right. I would be happy to speak with students at universities, especially the ones I'm affiliated with. And, maybe word will spread. So, yeah, I'd love to be a lecturer. I do lecture quite a bit in my life.
You are affiliated with universities?
Yeah. So I graduated from Ohio State University. My master's degree is from Miami University of Oxford. I have studied at Moscow State University and also at the Vienna Music Institute and Bryn Mawr College. So these are all universities that I have gained a whole lot of knowledge from, right? A lot of my writing is really deeply based in my life's worth of scholarship, life's work of research, not just these past 12 years.
And they all know that you wrote this book, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if
Oh,
they, I
okay.
don't know if they all know that. I'm not really good at publicizing myself.
That's okay. All you have to do is send that book to these universities. I'm sure
Yeah,
you have a contact or you know
yeah,
somebody who
yeah.
knows somebody. Get that book out there. It's fascinating.
Thank
It
you.
is fascinating. It really is. It would be a great women's history course.
I think it was. I might even be interested in teaching it, honestly.
Well, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd come to that. I would
Hmm.
come to that.
Yeah. Oh, you're giving me all kinds of interesting ideas.
Well, I try. I mean, I think this is fascinating, and I think it's really important for your family that you're doing this. This is the kind of stuff your children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, they should know.
Yeah, but I do want to say that I have really maintained all of the stories and all of the traditions. I have I have been that storyteller to my children and grandchildren. So for me, I want to reach a, a global audience, to reach them with these stories because they are so relevant to so many
Oh
people.
my gosh, I could talk to you for an hour.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what you do with this would be book 2 that you'll start working on now.
Yes, it's called Slavka and Gita. It's probably going to be the most painful of the books because there's so much tragedy, with the occupation of the Nazis and again, so much loss and degradation of humanity. But it's also it's just an incredibly powerful book of survival and how do you combat evil. So I'm excited to finish writing it.
So many great books about World War II, about the role that women played in World War II. I just read like 3 different books on these women who broke the codes. They
Hmm.
broke the
Hmm.
German codes, and just reading about what went on in that time, how these people survived, and you just look at your life and go, and we have it so tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
We don't know
yeah.
what
Right,
struggle is.
exactly. We
We don't
we
know.
are really, really
we
we're fortunate. I guess the thing that I think is so unique to what I'm trying to accomplish is that it is a story of a generational family throughout the 20th century. And so you will know the same characters. They do not go away. They just continue throughout this passage till they pass away. I don't write the plot. The plot is written already, right? It's just how did it occur and what happened after and what is the purpose.
Such a pleasure.
All right, it was a great pleasure talking with you.
I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much. Our next author, Bella T. Altura, is a scientist who also had an incredible life, who together with her husband made the world a better place for all of us. The name of her book, The Construction of a Scientist, Secrets of a Marriage and Politics.
Thank you for calling.
You're welcome, Bella. So this is a story about your husband and your
Yes,
marriage.
yes,
And he was an amazing man, wasn't he?
yes, he was. He was a very unusual man. The book, The Construction of a Scientist, Secrets of a Marriage and Politics, is a short biography of my husband of 60 years, Dr. Burton M. Altura. It describes the background, education, and development of a scientist, the kind of life it entails, and some work that he produced. It also touches on the fact that I, his wife, who loved the country with all her heart, having come to the US legally after 10 years of waiting, did not remember the resilience and common sense of true Americans, and so wanted to leave the country because the Democrats had won the election. It entails a life that he was had to have, and his background, education, and development to be a scientist. And it, as I said, it also touches on the fact that politics got involved in it.
Okay, so where are you guys from? Where are you and your husband from?
My husband is a United States citizen, born here. I am from Germany and went through the Holocaust.
Okay. And you came here.
Yes.
And you met your husband.
At work.
Where were you working?
I was working at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York, which is a cancer institute.
And what were you guys doing?
We were working in the clinical laboratory, and I was working there for 6 years. And I was working there before he started too.
And you guys got along?
He loved to talk, and as a matter of fact, he used to work so fast that he always finished his work before everybody else. And then he would sit on our secretary's desk and talk to her, and talk to her about anything that he liked to talk about.
He held 3 jobs at the same time, got a PhD in 3 years,
Yes.
published 6 full-length papers. What was his focus? What did he study?
He studied physiology, pharmacology, and medicine. He got a professorship of all 3.
And then what were you doing? You guys wound up working together, right?
Yes. He got a lab eventually, and then he asked me to work for him when I got my PhD.
What did you get your PhD in?
Physiology.
And so together you worked?
Yes.
For how many years?
I would say 40 years.
What would you say was your greatest accomplishment in that 40 years?
Well, there were 2 things. We studied the effect of magnesium on the cardiovascular system, both the heart and the blood vessels. And this became a new thing, and we are sort of called the mother and father of magnesium. But Bert also studied the effect of drugs on the immune system, and he was doing a wonderful job on this, which was a very important thing to do for health, because if you can increase your immune system, you could prevent people from getting very sick or even dying. So that was his main focus at the end of his life. And he was hoping to do this until the very end. He was working until the very end.
How old was he?
85. He was still working.
And he was still working?
Yes, we had a lab, and we had 2 postdocs, postdoctoral fellows working there. And he was writing the papers, and he had a photographic memory, I have to say that. So anything that was done, he could remember for years and years before. So he could write material that we didn't write up quite after we finished it, years later.
That's amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. And at first I didn't believe it. I thought he was faking things. I really did, because he got finished so quickly, at that first job we had. and finished before anybody else ever finished. So I thought he was faking it all.
Where was your lab?
We went to Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn. That's where he got his lab. Bert could have gotten a job anywhere he wanted. He was approached from schools all over the United States. Unfortunately, I didn't want to leave New York City. So he did what I wanted. He always did what I wanted.
So what happened?
Well, he got this job in a Downstate Medical Center, and we worked there for about 40 years or so. And then when I retired from teaching and working, we went to Florida, and Bert used to go every week back and forth to see what's going on in the lab. But he wrote his papers in Florida, where we were. And unfortunately, at the end, when the election became that the Democrats won, I asked him to please renew my passport because I didn't want to live here under the Democrats.
You mean the Biden administration?
Yes, I love this country with all my heart and soul. It gave me everything I would want, all my dreams. I came from nothing. My parents had zero money. I had zero money. As soon as I came to this country, my mother died. So I had such a hard time. But I was able to become somebody out of nothing, absolutely nothing. Now, this country gave me a chance to work during the day and go to school at night. Where can you do this in this world? No place. No place you could do that. So I was able to earn my money and get my studies done, which I desperately wanted. So I love this country. And I realized that things under the Democratic administration would go downhill, which it has. It has gone so much downhill that I can't even believe it's the same country anymore. First of all, the open border, bringing in terrible people and bringing in fentanyl and bringing in crime. The fentanyl is killing teenagers and little older people by the thousands. By the thousands. This country has become anti-Semitic, which it never was. On Saturday, we got from the temple, we got a warning. Be careful today because the neo-Nazis are going to said that it was going to be a day of hate. So we all were scared for the whole day. But thank God nothing happened.
And you think if there was a Republican in the White House, this would not be happening?
Mr. Trump did the best for us, for all of us. He did the best for Israel. He did the best for the Middle East. He did so much good. He did the best for every one of us. I mean, we were energy independent. He did so much good for this country. But the other side, they were jealous and they couldn't stand the fact that he found things that were not good being done on the other side, on the Democratic side.
So you were prepared to leave the country. Was your husband going to go with you?
Yeah, that was another thing. That's why I put in Secrets of a Marriage. My husband really didn't want to leave, but but I couldn't stand the idea of staying here. I was only going to go for the 4 years, whatever it was. So he did this for me and wrote this letter. My passport had run out. So to renew my passport, he wrote this letter in a chair that had 4 wheels under it. And a piece of paper fell. So he bent down to pick up the piece of paper, and the wheels of the chair went backwards and he fell. And that's what finished his life off, because he had the broken rib, the broken hip. And when he went in the hospital to have that fixed, he got the COVID from the next door neighbor who was in the room with him, because he coughed all night and all day. At that time, it wasn't so, we didn't know as much about COVID. So he came home and he gave the COVID to me. So I fell and broke my hip too. It's in the book. Anyway, he got sicker and sicker, and I couldn't even be with him because they put us in 2 different hospitals. So I couldn't even hold his hand. It was terrible. Yeah, it's in the book, and it's all because I made him write that letter to renew my passport.
I'm so sorry.
Well, thank you. That's why I wrote the book. I couldn't do anything else. I didn't want to live anymore, but that was the only thing that made me continue to want to live, so that I would finish it.
Well, it's wonderful that you're sharing his story and your story. You're 2 extremely brilliant people who left this world a much better place. And it's great that people should know your story.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have children?
I have 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren.
And your grandchildren should know your story, and their children.
Yes.
So I hope you feel good about what you have been able to do.
Unfortunately, I didn't do as good a job as I should have because I got ill. And so I rushed it because I wanted to finish it before I would die. So the whole thing got sort of rushed and not done as properly as I should have.
I'm sure it's a wonderful story. And now, you're here to talk about it. And that's important too.
I guess I survived what I didn't think I would survive.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss their trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.